home of Arnold Palmer. This is the home of my friend Arnold Palmer.
I'm a proud soldier in Ari's Army. You see, I've even got an umbrella on my lapel. He was the king of our sport.
He was a friend. He was a friend. And a person that I would pick up the phone.
There was a time when golf felt like it belonged to someone else. The sport was locked behind country club gates. The galleries stood silent. Then one man walked onto a course and changed everything. This is the Palmer effect, and it rewired the entire game of golf. Before Arnold Palmer, professional golf was a quiet, exclusive world. In the early 1950s, the sport existed almost entirely within country clubs. The typical golfer was wealthy, white, and male. The galleries were small and composed mostly of insiders who already played the game. They were observers. They stood respectfully at the edges of greens, applauding politely. There was no roaring, no running, no passion. The atmosphere was one of hushed appreciation, like visiting a museum rather than watching a sport. The professional golfer occupied a strange position in this world. Club members still viewed the touring professional as something like a hired hand. He was a technician of the golf swing, but he was not a celebrity. He was not someone the average American related to. The barrier between player and spectator was thick and permanent. Financially, the professional golf circuit of that era barely resembled the sport we know today. It was a traveling caravan. Players drove from town to town on two-lane highways, sharing motel rooms to save money. Prize purses were small. In 1950, Sam Snead led the money list with just over $35,000. By 1955, when Arnold Palmer turned professional, the leading money winner earned only $63,000. These weren't fortunes. Most professional golfers kept jobs at country clubs during the off-season just to support their families and make ends meet. The competitive landscape of the 1950s was dominated by three giants: Ben Hogan, Sam Snead, and Byron Nelson. Hogan was known as the Iceman. He was technically perfect, but he was aloof. He looked through the gallery, not at them. His game was elimination and risk management. He shut out the crowd. Sam Snead was more accessible. His swing was fluid. But Snead's peak years came before television exploded. Byron Nelson had retired in 1946. He was revered, but no longer a commercial force. These players played a game that emphasized etiquette and silence. The emotional connection between player and spectator barely existed. Arnold Palmer was born in 1929 in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. His father, Deacon Palmer, was the greenskeeper at Latrobe Country Club. This detail is crucial. Arnold grew up at the club, but he was not of the club. He was the son of an employee. He cut grass, he pushed mowers. He learned golf through work, not privilege. Deacon Palmer taught his son to respect the game and its traditions. But he also taught him grit. He taught him to hit the ball hard. This shaped not just how Palmer swung a club, but who he was as a person. When Arnold arrived on the professional tour, he did not look like a patrician. He looked like a man who had worked with his body his entire life. He had thick forearms and big hands. He hit the ball with a violence fundamentally different from anything the golf world had seen. Palmer's relatability was strengthened by military service. He attended Wake Forest University, where his close friend Bud Worsham died in a car accident. Grief-stricken, Palmer dropped out and enlisted in the U.S. Coast Guard in 1951. He served for 3 years as an enlisted man. When he returned to amateur golf in 1954, he brought the discipline and fighting spirit of someone who had served his country. He understood the life of ordinary Americans in a way Hogan and Snead never could. Palmer's philosophy was unlike anything the sport had seen. While Hogan played a game of elimination, Palmer played conquest. He attacked the course. He challenged trees and bunkers others avoided. He hit hard and chased hard. When he missed, he grimaced. When he made a putt, he punched the air. He hitched his pants. He was visceral and human. He famously said, "I never felt that I could not win." That refusal to accept defeat made him magnetic to watch. On June 18, 1960, at Cherry Hills Country Club in Denver, a modern game of golf was born. The 1960 U.S. Open featured final rounds on the same day, a crucible moment. Between rounds, Palmer sat 7 strokes behind the leader. He was in 15th place. A sports writer asked him what he was thinking. Palmer said, "What would a 65 do?" The writer told him it would be worthless. Palmer responded, "The hell it won't." The first hole at Cherry Hills was a 346-yard par 4. Palmer pulled his driver. The ball carried through the air, bounced through the rough, and rolled onto the green 20 feet from the cup. He had driven the green to start the final round. The gallery erupted. Palmer two-putted for birdie and kept charging. He birdied 6 of the first 7 holes, shooting a front 930. The Cherry Hills charge had begun. As Palmer tore up the course, the leaders faltered under the pressure of the roar. The atmosphere shifted. Fans broke through ropes. The noise was deafening. 3 generations collided at Cherry Hills. Ben Hogan, the old king, hit a ball into the water on the 17th and fell from contention. Jack Nicklaus, the 20-year-old amateur, finished second. Arnold Palmer shot a final round 65 to win by 2 strokes. It was a coronation. The king had arrived. Palmer's victory at the U.S. Open proved that his Masters victory in 1958 was not a fluke. His aggressive, emotional, go-for-broke style could win. Immediately after Cherry Hills, Palmer and journalist Bob Drum redefined what it meant to achieve greatness. On a flight to the British Open, they discussed Bobby Jones's Grand Slam in 1930. Jones won 4 championships in 1 year. For the professional era, this was impossible to replicate. Palmer and Drum invented something new. They called it the modern Grand Slam, winning the Masters, U.S. Open, British Open, and PGA Championship in a single calendar year. This concept did not formally exist before Palmer created it. Palmer's focus on the British Open changed world golf. In 1960, American professionals avoided it. Travel was expensive, prize money was low. In 1960, Palmer lost by 1 stroke to Kel Nagle at St. Andrews, but he returned in 1961 and won at Royal Birkdale. He defended his title in 1962 at Royal Troon. Because Palmer cared about the Open Championship, the American public began to care. Because Americans cared, television began to cover it. Other stars like Jack Nicklaus and Gary Player felt compelled to follow. Palmer restored the British Open to its rightful place as the oldest and most prestigious championship in golf. Palmer and television arrived simultaneously at the perfect time. This coincidence is crucial to golf's explosion. Television was penetrating American homes, but golf was hard to televise. It was slow and spread across hundreds of acres. Golf needed a character. Frank Cherkinian, a CBS producer, recognized Palmer was perfect for television and the medium was perfect for Palmer. Cherkinian revolutionized golf broadcasts in fundamental ways. Before him, scores were reported as cumulative totals. Viewers couldn't do the math. Cherkinian introduced the underpar and overpar system, making the state of play instantly clear. He placed microphones on tees to capture the sound of drivers. Palmer's swing produced a distinct, powerful sound that resonated with television audiences. Cherkinian installed high-angle cameras to show the scale of the course and the size of galleries, but most importantly, he instructed cameramen to follow Palmer exclusively. The camera loved Palmer. Even when he was losing, he was the story. The entire structure of televised golf was built around Palmer's position on the leaderboard. Arnie's Army represented a profound shift in how golf fans behaved. Never before had a golfer commanded a vocal, mobilized following. The name originated at the 1958 Masters. Augusta National used soldiers from Camp Gordon to man scoreboards and gave free passes to soldiers. These GIs gravitated toward Palmer, the Coast Guard veteran. A soldier hung a sign, Arnie's Army. The name stuck. The Army quickly expanded. Palmer's success coincided with the post-war economic boom that expanded the American middle class. Factory workers, plumbers, salesmen, men who had never been inside a country club began watching golf because of Palmer. They saw themselves in him. Arnie's Army did not stand politely, they stampeded, they climbed trees, they groaned when Palmer missed and roared when he made putts. Palmer fed off this energy. He engaged with them. He made eye contact. This emotional feedback loop between player and spectator was unprecedented. It made golf feel like it belonged to everyone. In 1960, Palmer shook hands with Mark McCormick, Cleveland lawyer and visionary entrepreneur. That handshake changed professional sports forever. McCormick approached Palmer with a radical idea. Let me manage your affairs and turn you into a brand. Palmer refused to sign a contract and said, we'll just shake hands on it. That handshake launched IMG, the world's largest sports management agency. McCormick secured transformative deals. Coca-Cola, United Airlines, Cadillac, Hertz. In 1961, Palmer asked Wilson Sporting Goods for a $300,000 life insurance policy to protect his family. Wilson refused. Palmer walked away and started his own equipment company. Then he struck massive deals with other manufacturers. The athlete was now bigger than the equipment company. McCormick and Palmer created the famous umbrella logo. Most tellingly, Palmer is one of the few athletes in history to have a beverage named after him. The Arnold Palmer, half lemonade and half iced tea, represents how completely Palmer had woven himself into American culture. The 1960s belonged to Palmer, but it was also defined by his rivalry with Jack Nicklaus. Every great hero needs a foil, and Nicklaus was the perfect counterpoint. Palmer was rugged and emotional, working class, an aggressive risk-taker. Nicklaus was fair-haired and stoic, younger, raised in a country club environment, a calculated strategist. In the early years, the narrative heavily favored Palmer. The 1962 U.S. Open at Oakmont, Palmer's home course in Pennsylvania, was the crucible. Nicklaus defeated Palmer in an 18-hole playoff on Palmer's home turf. The crowd was hostile to Nicklaus. They openly cheered his mistakes and called him Fat Jack. It was a partisan, raucous atmosphere more akin to a football game than a golf tournament. Despite their on-court friction, Palmer and Nicklaus, along with South African Gary Player, formed the Big Three. Managed by McCormack, traveled the world playing exhibition matches in Japan, Australia, and South America. Palmer, often piloting his own jet, made the world feel smaller and the game feel bigger. This was the beginning of the globalization of professional golf. They brought world-class talent to markets that had never seen it before. Palmer's influence extended to the highest levels of American government. He formed a close friendship with President Dwight D. Eisenhower, an avid golfer who installed a putting green at the White House and played over 800 rounds during his presidency. The optics of a popular president and a popular king playing together validated golf as the national pastime of post-war America. Together, they drove an enormous and unprecedented boom in course construction. In the 1950s, golf course growth was modest. In the 1960s, it exploded dramatically. The number of golf courses in America skyrocketed during the Palmer-Eisenhower years. Public golf courses, not just exclusive private clubs, began to proliferate. The game that had been restricted to the economic elite was suddenly becoming accessible. I want you to think about something for a moment. Golf used to be a game exclusively for the wealthy. If you weren't born into money, if you didn't belong to a country club, you simply didn't play. You didn't belong. Then Palmer changed that. He made it possible for a factory worker to care about golf, to follow a player, to feel like they truly belonged to the sport. He transformed golf from an exclusive pastime into a democratic one. And if you've ever felt connected to a golfer, if you've ever cheered for someone on a course, if you've ever felt like golf was yours to love, you have Palmer to thank for that. Subscribe to the channel and drop a comment below about who your favorite golfer is and why they matter to you. Let's build a community around the game Palmer opened up to all of us. The infrastructure of modern golf is essentially Palmer's estate. He died in 2016, but his impact continues to grow and evolve. In the early 1990s, the idea of a 24-hour network dedicated to a single sport seemed absurd. Cable operators were skeptical, but Palmer, along with entrepreneur Joe Gibbs, co-founded the Golf Channel in 1995. Palmer's credibility was the linchpin that convinced cable providers to carry the network. Today, the Golf Channel is the central nervous system of the sport. It is a direct lineage from Palmer's initial television stardom. The financial impact Palmer had on professional golf is almost incomprehensible. Every professional golfer playing today owes what we might call a Palmer tax of gratitude. The exponential growth in prize money, the television contracts worth billions of dollars, sponsorship opportunities, global reach of the sport, all of it traces directly back to the television boom that Palmer initiated. Tiger Woods once said, "If it wasn't for Arnold, golf wouldn't be as popular as it is now." He's the one who basically brought it to the forefront on television. That statement captures Palmer's true legacy better than any statistic. His career statistics, 62 PGA Tour wins and 7 major championships, are genuinely impressive, but they fail to capture his actual significance and transformative impact. Sam Snead won more tournaments, Jack Nicklaus won more majors, Tiger Woods won more money, but Arnold Palmer won the people, captured their hearts and minds, made them care. He took a game that was black and white and made it technicolor. He took a sport of silence and added roar and passion. He took a pastime of the elite and opened it to the world. When you look at the modern landscape of sports today, where athletes are global brands, where television contracts run into the billions, where fans feel a personal and emotional connection to the players, you are looking at the world that Arnold Palmer created. He found golf locked behind country club gates. He left it in the living room of every American home. He transformed the gallery from a place of silent observation into a place of active participation. He made the player a hero instead of a technician. He made the game accessible instead of exclusive. The Palmer effect was not just about one man winning tournaments. It was about one man rewriting the rules of how sport could be, how it should be, and how it would be forever. Think about that the next time you watch golf on television. Every roar from the gallery, every camera focused on emotion instead of perfect mechanics, every endorsement deal that extends beyond the sport itself, every public golf course that exists where there used to be nothing, every moment when a player connects with a fan and feels like they are part of something together, that is Arnold Palmer's legacy. That is what happens when one person decides to change the game not just for himself, but for everyone around him and for generations to come. Thank you for watching. If you found this story about how Arnold Palmer revolutionized golf interesting, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Leave a comment below about how Palmer's legacy has impacted you or someone you know. What does his story mean to you? Let's keep this conversation going together.